Hi there, my name is Michelle, and today, for My Story Animated, I'm going to tell you the horrifying story of how I was stuck in my crush's locker for 1 year. Fear and loneliness can sometimes make you do things you never thought you could. I was heartbroken and lost, and you won't believe how far I went. A lot of things happened back then, so tune in, subscribe to this channel, and follow me. It all started the day I wanted to leave a love letter for Gerard. We'd been flirting for a couple of months, and I was too much of a chicken to ask him to the prom, and since he wasn't asking me, well, I decided to ask him with a letter. I put the letter inside his locker, and suddenly I heard him and his friends approaching. I didn't know where to go, so I hid inside his locker. Then, as I wished he didn't open the locker, I heard them talking about playing me a practical joke on the next day. I mean, what? He was telling his friends that he was going to ask me to the prom, only to stand me up and then go to the prom with his real girlfriend. I was shocked. His real girlfriend? Why would he flirt with me all this time if he had a girlfriend? As I heard him coming closer to the locker, I panicked. I stepped back, and when I leaned against the back wall, it opened and I fell inside a hidden room. The door closed back just before he opened his locker. I was safe, but I realized I'd left my letter there. I heard them as he read the letter out loud with his friends, laughing and mocking me. I was so heartbroken. After they left, I realized that the hidden room had no doors, but the vent duct that connected the air conditioning between rooms in the whole school was the only way out. I got in and crawled for a while until I found the next room. It was the girls' bathroom. I saw that my best friend Alicia was there. I climbed down on one of the toilets. I was still crying. I wanted nothing else but hug her and cry on her shoulder. I was about to open the door when I heard her talking with another girl about the practical joke my crush was going to play on me. I froze. Immediately, I found out not only that she was thrilled with the idea, but also that she was his mysterious girlfriend. She said, "Michelle is such a loser. She has no idea what's waiting for her." Shocked with surprise, I took a deep breath, and they heard me. I stepped back to the corner instinctively. Like that would help. I stood still. As they heard that someone was in one of the bathrooms, they started to whisper. One of the girls started to open the door, and suddenly, the bell rang. They left, and I sighed. I climbed back inside the vent duct. My heart was crushed again. I had trouble breathing. I went back to the room and continued crying until I fell asleep. When I woke up, everything was silent and dark. It was night. I was so hungry. I went through the vent system to the cafeteria. I found all sorts of things there. It felt kind of cool to have the entire school for myself. Or so I thought, because I suddenly heard the night guard entering the cafeteria. He pointed around with his flashlight, and I hid under the table. He walked towards me, and as he saw the food on the table, sat down and started eating it. I was inches away from his legs and holding my breath. Then he left, and I went back to the vent system. I continued to crawl, and suddenly I realized I was over the file room. The file room was the office where everyone's files were. Not only students, but staff also. All of us wished we could enter there at least once. But of course, it was strictly forbidden. Now, I had the chance to access all of their files. I went down and opened Gerard's first. It said his parents were divorced, and his father had a restraining order because he'd been violent with him and his brothers for years. Oh my God! Gerard never talked about his personal life, and now I knew why. He must have suffered a lot. I too had my share of problems at home. My dad left when I was 2 years old, and my mom never fully recovered. She was now chronically depressed and going in and out of mental institutions all the time. It was a hard time for kids. But I didn't turn into a jerk. So why did you, Gerard? And why were you going to humiliate me? I did nothing to you. I shut his file violently and started to see others. Oh, man, you have no idea the amount of secrets I found in there. Affairs, violence, mental problems. My case was just one of the many in that school. After that night, I decided I would live in the school. Not like I had a loving family to go back to anyway. So I spent every day in the hidden room, and every night I wandered through the school. My classmates looked for me on the next couple of days, of course. Prom was getting closer, and I was indispensable for their practical joke. How pathetic. And to make things worse, they told the principal I was missing. The police started searching for me throughout the entire town. I was the big news on TV. Hiding in the vents, I had access to every room in the school, and from there, I saw that my face was on every TV. I was the main theme for conversation and gossip. After a few weeks, The police said on TV that they were going to stop looking for me, that they came to the conclusion that I was probably dead. I felt bad for a moment, but then again, I didn't want to show up. I was learning a lot about my classmates and teachers. All the hidden thoughts one always wished could hear were now open to me. Everything they ever thought about me. The teachers were saying I'd been a lame student that made no efforts and had no passions. Some of my classmates said I was a loser, and others didn't even know who the police was talking about. I mean, come on, guys. I know I wasn't the ideal person, but they made it sound like I was invisible. Even now, after my presumptuous death, they showed no mercy. Alicia, my so-called best friend, was now telling everyone about my sad past, about my father and my mother. Since I was the new theme for gossip, she gained popularity as she told everyone how close we were and how sad she was. But she didn't defend me when the others criticized me. Some of the time, she even added hurtful details. She was such a hypocrite. She acted in front of everyone like she missed me, but then laughed about me with her new friends and especially with Gerard. They were now boyfriend and girlfriend openly. And as I followed them around school through the vents, I noticed they spent a lot of time talking about me. They even felt sad for my death, because now they wouldn't be able to carry out the joke they'd planned for months. I was getting angrier and angrier. To make things worse, one time I was hiding in one of the empty classrooms, and Gerard and Alicia entered and started to make out. I had to hide under a table and stay still while hearing everything. They kissed and touched and talked and laughed. It was disgusting. I wanted to die. After what seemed like forever, they started to leave, and I made some noise unwillingly. Alicia turned around, and I could swear our eyes met for a split second. Gerard asked her what happened. She said she thought she saw something and looked again. Gerard said, "It's Michelle's ghost," like joking. But she looked at him scared and told him not to joke about that. He looked at her seriously and told her he was just joking. But she said she was scared, that she kind of felt my presence there. Gerard laughed hardly in her face, but she told him to shut up and started whispering something in his ear. I was curious about her words, so I moved towards them, making more noise. They looked in my direction seriously. She said, "See? I told you! Every time I talk about her, something like this happens!" "You're paranoid," Gerard answered and left. She stayed for a moment longer, looking all around her, scared, and then rushed out after him. I thought about the ghost thing for a moment. I always felt like a ghost, but this time, I realized I was actually enjoying being one. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. And since I had a lot of time to think, I orchestrated a macabre plan. Based on the one thing that put this story in motion, I decided to start writing letters. To whom? Everyone. I decided I would become a secret judge, a tyrant judge. Yeah, pretty dramatic. I would threaten them all. It only took a couple of months of hiding to know all their dirty little secrets. Not only the students, but the teachers as well. And so I did. I started with Alicia. She was the easiest one. She was already scared of me. I followed her around school through the vent ducts, and every time she mentioned me, I made noise. It was fun to see how she was getting really paranoid. So I wrote her a letter that said very simple but powerful words. "I am watching you." She locked herself in the bathroom, shaking and crying, as her new worried friends asked her if she was okay. Alicia told them she was scared, that I was haunting her from the afterlife. The other girls glanced at each other in silence. Alicia was the most popular girl in school now, so they wouldn't dare contradict her. But I could see in their faces that they thought Alicia was losing it. And I confirmed that when Alicia left the bathroom and they were left alone. Just as Alicia used to talk about me behind my back, now these girls were doing the same to her. Eye for an eye, my dear. Alicia then stopped talking about me. She wouldn't let anyone say my name around her either. Then I went for Gerard. I was a bit more creative this time. In the first letter, I told him I knew everything about his dysfunctional family and that I heard his daddy was looking for him. That was a low punch, I know. Gerard tore the letter quickly and threw it away. So I wrote him another letter that said, "No matter how many times you try to get rid of me, I'll still be here." He really freaked out after that one. I kept on busting Gerard and Alicia for a few weeks until they broke up. They even blamed each other for the letters because I wrote things in the letters that they only said to each other. How would they know there was someone else hearing everything? After they were as humiliated as me, I thought about stopping. But as I started to pay attention to other conversations, I noticed there were many students in school wanting to hurt others, and many others about to become victims. I even saw the teachers being unfair to some students for no reason. This had to stop, and I was the perfect candidate for the job. So I spent the next day in the hidden room writing the letters, and then I delivered them through the night. I carefully put them in the lockers, or drawers, or forgotten jackets, depending on the person. I had their files and heard their private conversations, so I knew them all quite well, and I knew what would affect them personally. On the very next day, I felt like I was in heaven. The entire school was a war zone. Everyone was fighting and shouting. The teachers were punishing the usual rascals as they tried to defend themselves. Some students started to break things. Others were trying to burn down the letters, and that led to a general fire in the main building. They had to close the school for the day because the firemen were called and the police had to intervene. The second wave of letters I wrote and delivered during that night talked about the consequences of the first wave, and that left everyone puzzled. Who was giving away the letters if the school was closed? The consequences of that were very dangerous to me. The police closed the school for the entire week. They concluded that someone was hiding inside, and they were determined to find out who. My name came up as the first suspect, since they never actually found my body. So I spent the whole week moving around as they searched the room one by one, over and over again. Finally, when I was sure I was safe, one of the police dogs started to bark in front of Gerard's locker. I was in the hidden room just behind it, and the dog was scratching the locker frantically. The police thought that the dog had gone crazy, but as it insisted on barking, they moved the locker but found nothing. But when they knocked down the wall, they discovered my hidden room. I hid inside the vent duct just in time. The dog continued to bark frantically, and I was sure they would find me. The police took away all the notes, files, and the pictures that took me more than half a year to collect as evidence. The dog never stopped barking at me, but they didn't find me. The police continued the investigation for another month, but the school reopened. I kept a low profile for a couple of extra weeks, but I was pissed off. Mainly because they took away all my things, but also because the gossiping and the abuses grew even stronger after that. So, I decided to take things to the next level. I would be extra careful now. I would finally become the ghost everyone thought I was. I started to deliver new letters, threatening everyone that I would expose all their secrets. I'd done it before, and I would do it again. I even delivered some of the letters through the vents, holding them with threads. It really looked as if a ghost was manipulating them. All the students and even the teachers were freaking out. Sometimes, I took water from the cafeteria and sprinkled it from above when I heard someone mentioning my name. I got really skillful as a ghost. The police found my fingerprints on the letters and searched the school again, but they never found me. Whenever I heard someone saying something behind anyone's back, I responded. I made all sorts of noises, moved objects, and some of the times, I even cut the lights off. And every mean comment I heard was posted on the halls the very next day with the name of its author. Students and teachers were becoming really scared of saying or doing something mean. The school was finally starting to be the place I always dreamed it would be, the safe space every kid should have while growing up. My mission was accomplished, so I decided to reappear in the world, and I decided I would do it in front of Alicia. Alicia was a changed person now. She was the one that suffered my punishments the most, and that gave her a new perspective in life. She was nice to the nerds now, and even learned they could be fun too. I never spoke to Gerard again, and he never bothered anyone anymore. I went down the vent duct onto one of the toilets and waited for Alicia. When she entered the bathroom, I opened the door and said, "Surprise!" But not only did she not get scared of me, she ignored me. How could she? I was so angry. After all this time? I thought she had changed, but she didn't. I stood in front of her and shouted again, but nothing happened. And then she walked towards the door and passed through me. What the hell? I froze for a second, trying to understand that weird sensation that felt like a shivering. I went out the bathroom after her and shouted in the hall. It was break time and a lot of people were there, but nothing happened. No one could see me. No one could hear me. Suddenly, I looked at my hands completely astonished as I saw them slowly disappearing. Then, my body, and a second later, I was floating. I went up higher and higher until the school was a small dot in the land, until there was nothing else. Not even me. Then I woke up in the hospital. The police were there, and they explained to me that when I showed myself to Alicia, she freaked out and hit me on the head, and I lost consciousness. And the police told me that they were protecting me because hundreds of angry students were outside and they all wanted to get revenge for what I did. They were going to give me a fake identity and move me to a new state to hide from everyone until the court decides what to do with my case. Now, after all that happened, I want to tell anyone that I hurt that I am really sorry. I was just a stupid teenager with no parents or any sort of guidance, and I wish that I did things differently. And thank you for hearing my story on My Story Animated.